Good morning, everyone. Today is, I believe, Thursday. I'm losing
It
track
is
here. Before I introduce
Thursday.
to you my special guest, this esteemed lady right here is one of my very first instructors. Although she only taught me once in a private session, and she was the one who told me I was not dancing on time. Uh, Another valuable lesson I learned from her is to be able to turn the follower, and I do not have to do open break so that I can be consistent with the flow of the basic of salsa. And I've never forgotten that. And of course, over the years, as I have Salsa Gang, we worked together. I helped her promote Frankie Martinez when she brought the whole community here, and even Nelson Flores. Those are the
Mhm.
memorable ones for me that I work with Ava. And one of the things that I've always admired about her is her consistency in the industry and always relevant as a player in the business. Please welcome Ava Apple.
Thank you, Rodney.
How are you, my dear?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You know, I'm kind of sad and glad at the same time that you closed down your studio. I'm
Mhm.
sad that Latin Symbolics is not there, but I'm also glad that why will you pay monthly when you're not using it? It's a waste of time.
Right,
So it was a very smart decisions you did. Not to mention, if you ever have a studio
right,
again, do you plan to have like a higher ceiling so that you can do your acrobatics and stuff?
right. Good questions. So we did, luckily, our landlord, as soon as the shutdown hit, he contacted us and did give us a break on our
Mm,
rent.
mm,
We were one of the lucky ones because I know not all landlords were doing that.
yeah.
So we did continue. So that when that first happened, to be honest, when everything shut down, I had enough in the bank for that next month's rent.
Rainy day, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah,
And I was like, okay, well, because back then we didn't know how long it was going to be. And I figured, well, I've got the 1 month rent.
yeah.
And I was not wanting to reach out to our landlord because, we'd had a decent relationship, but not the warmest
Yeah,
over the
okay.
years. So, and for various reasons. So I was just waiting till that first of the month. The night before, luckily I didn't drop off the check early because the night before he texted me and gave me the break on the rent and said, we're all in this together, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, thank you. So that meant I had 2 months rent.
Mm, mm,
So we kept the studio for I think it was 2 or 3 months that we paid at the reduced rent,
yeah.
waiting because still things it was not seeming like it was going to go on for so long. No one really knew,
Mm,
and we were using it to do our live streaming classes, both Rodolfo and I, for a little while, and we were just kind of trying to wait it out. When we saw that was not coming anytime soon. And we had been already starting to look for, or at least thinking of, and very kind of casually starting to look for a new space. One of the reasons being what you mentioned,
mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
place was always a little bit low for us, the
Yeah,
ceiling,
yeah,
for what
yeah.
we do and for what we teach other couples to do. So we figured, okay, now's the time. So we gave notice, and we have been actively looking for a new space. Um, and we are fairly confident that we will have a new space ready to go as soon as we can be in there doing stuff.
Yeah, because like this
Which I
is
know
like
it's starting to open up, but we're working on some different options, and we plan to reopen shortly.
make sure you signed that right contract because right now they're willing to give just about anything because they need the business, right? Because so many things are closing.
Right.
I mean, like here in as you know in Reno, the houses are so cheap. So every time we see a house and we make a bid, we get outbidded by Californians.
Mm,
Why? They pay cash.
wow.
I was like,
Okay.
come on, guys, you know. But
Okay.
that's a hot thing right now in real estate, by the way. But
Wow.
Ava,
Yeah.
ever since I was just growing up as a beginner in salsa dancing,
Hmm.
I used to watch your team, And by that time, he already had a team. It was not Latin Symbolics, by the way. It was some other name, right? Ava Apple Group or something, right?
When you first,
Metronome days, you know?
okay, so we became the Latin Symbolics. We took that name. We first started with Latin Symbolics 2000, but we
Right.
started a year or two before the year 2000.
Mm,
So it was about 98 that we took that name.
I see.
So if you're talking before that, yes, then it
It is
was.
before that because I remember in Metronome, and at that time, I wasn't doing salsa, I was doing ballroom. I
Okay.
don't know if you remember my partner Minerva, little short
I
Filipino
do
girl.
remember that name,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah, and you know, I think monthly Metronome had some type of performances and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was watching, I think that was Saturday night, and I told Minerva, "Who are those people?" It's like, "Oh, that's Ava Apple," and so
Oh,
that name stuck with me.
yeah.
And then, of course, later on, as I matured in salsa a little bit, then you partner up with Luis
Louis.
Rosa,
Yeah.
and then you guys started producing like Alex Lee and Chi.
Yeah.
You know, Philip Heyman was already with you guys, I believe. I think Junior and Emily were just 13 years old at that time.
Right.
Although they were already performing, but they weren't on time. We all knew that.
Right. So yeah, so when you first saw me then it was Ava Apple and Company.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
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 It actually started out about in 91, it started out as Ava Apple and Dancers.
Uh-huh.
Morphed into Ava Apple and Company. And then, like I said, around 98, when I was partnering with Louis Rosa,
Mm-hmm.
so at that time, the Latin Symbolics had been one of the early hustle and salsa teams in New York. The two main teams were the Latin Symbolics and the Dance Dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who knows about or has learned about hustle and the kings and queens of the hustle world, Eddie Vega, Lourdes Jones, Billy Fajardo,
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Nunziella, all
Right.
of those people, Nelly Cotto. Some of them were in both teams,
Those were
some of them
the
were
those
one
were
or
the
the other.
those were the Denny Trejo type of days in the TV program, right?
Danny Terrio.
Yeah.
Yes, when Dance Fever was on, most of
Mm-hmm.
those people were on there. So at that time, the Latin Symbolics hadn't done anything for years.
Yeah.
Um, and there was nothing, and we were starting to bring lifts and hustle into the salsa community, which was still the Salsa Congress world, which was
Right.
still fairly young,
Right.
right? Because I was at the Albert Torres Congresses from the beginning. I was at the Puerto Rican Salsa Congress, was the first one,
I can't believe you
and
were
I missed, well,
you were
I
in that
missed,
Congress. Were you at the very first New York
no,
Congress
the
also?
Puerto
Because it's
Rican.
not in Manhattan.
So the Puerto Rican Congress, we missed the first one. We started
Okay.
going with the second one.
Okay. Okay.
Albert Torres, we were there from the first, and I went every year up through about the 15th year. Okay. The New York Congresses that were put on by David Melendez, yes, we were there from the first.
Mm.
And the first 2 or 3 years were held in the Catskills
Right. Right.
at these ancient resorts that were a trip.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, just getting back real quick, how we got our name, the Latin Symbolics. The
Yeah.
Latin Symbolics had done nothing for many years.
Mm.
And since we were starting to bring that in, we chose that name because we wanted to educate people about them, honor them. They were our idols, watching videos and stuff.
Mm.
And luckily, I think it was at the LA Salsa Congress. So it must have been either like around 99. It was probably 99 or 2000. And I think that was the first time that I got to meet Angel Rodriguez
Oh yeah.
in person.
I remember him too.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so Angel Rodriguez along with Addie, was the creator of Razzmatazz Dance
Correct.
Company in New York.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like on the par of Eddie Torres dancers. They were, but they had slightly different style, but they were in that same
He
genre.
passed away, right? That years
No,
ago, right?
no,
Oh,
no.
okay. Okay. And that
No,
was a different Angel then.
that was a different Angel.
Yeah.
That was Angel Ortiz, also a
Correct. Okay.
fabulous
Got
dancer,
it.
Eddie Torres dancer.
Yeah.
So Angel Rodriguez was part of the original Latin Symbolics. And so we were talking to him, and he goes, you know, he'd heard of me, he'd heard of us. He kind of knew Louis from New York in a roundabout way. And luckily, he gave his stamp of approval. He told me he had told other old time members of Latin Symbolics about us.
Mm.
They'd looked up some videos and stuff, and they all gave their stamp of approval. And, you know, we're like, oh, okay, good. Since then, um, I've gotten to meet Willie Estrada,
Mm.
who also was an early member of the Latin Symbolics, also a promoter, dancer, and more active in holding reunions and getting the scene going again. So I met him first just via Facebook, had a few phone conversations, luckily passed the test with him, got the stamp of approval. He calls me his sister. You know, so it's just, I'm just so honored that that we are maintaining the name and that the original members have given their stamp of approval to me and to our, you know, my team over the years and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And honored that I can call them my friends.
Yes, indeed.
So, yeah.
One of the things that I've always admired about you is since the beginning that I saw you dance with your team and all of that, you've always had a team, always. Always had dancers performing with you. And even to this day, right? How do you keep that? How do you maintain that? Because we both know already in the industry, you come and go, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you maintain that? Because that's pretty hard, Ava. Especially if
Yeah.
you do this full time, you know.
Yeah. It is hard. And you know, there has been some ups and downs. There have been times where I've had several teams, big teams. There's been times when it's been small. There have been a handful of consistent people over the years, some of which leave only because they move
Of course.
or they have injuries
Right.
or they go off on their own, etc. You know, but there's still kind of your core people, because you know that if they were still here in the Bay Area or hadn't gotten married and have kids, they'd probably still be dancing with you.
Right.
Or sometimes they even do, even after they have kids.
Right.
Hi, Ben. So, you know, you have to be really thankful for those ones that are really dedicated to you.
But how do you maintain mentally for you as a leader and as a director? How do you maintain that? Because, you know, when things are happening like that, when, you know, it's like, this is not good. There's not too many members here. I mean, what do you do in that, in those moments?
Yeah. So, well, a couple things. One is that, so when the teams are big, right, then they're making money.
Right.
You know, you can have people in the teams that you're not too crazy about. But they do go in cycles, and sometimes they're smaller for whatever reason.
Mm.
And when they're smaller, they better be people that you like hanging out with.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Because and the past couple years, like the past 2 years, because it's only been about 2 years. Well, thinking like, you know, pre-pandemic, right?
Sure.
But I'd say about the past 2 years, about 2 years ago, our teams were quite big. We had quite a few teams. Now, some of the reasons that we switched away from that was we were doing several franchise teams.
Got it.
Now, in the beginning of that, which was maybe 8 years ago when these franchise teams became big, in the beginning, I'm not knocking it, and I'm not unhappy that we did the teams when we did. They were good for us for a time. I'm thankful for that. George and Tanya, we did their Island Touch teams for many years. Honored that we got to do the Yamule teams for about 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and apparently that one you know, I had asked Osmar about it. He told me to contact Oscar. Apparently, a lot of people who apply for that, they've got to send in videos. They got to do this and that and that.
I see. I see.
And Oscar was like, you know, who is this? You know, and he asked Oscar. Oscar said, give it to her. So, you know, so
Yeah.
again, super thankful, super honored that they
Yeah.
had that confidence in me. But towards the end, about a year before the pandemic, it was just to the point where we were realizing we don't have enough artistic control.
Mm,
And
yeah.
just we got burnt out on it. Yeah, it was good
Yeah.
while it was happening,
Yeah.
but we got burnt out on it, and we decided, okay, no. And we either do our own, or we even just take a break for a little while.
Right.
And we kind of, so we did, we dropped all the franchise teams, and we gradually just brought it back to just one, the Latin Symbolics, which
Right.
is
Right.
5 people.
Yeah.
But we were happy, and we started doing we started doing more weekly classes, and those are drawing people. So there's the income, there's the students, but we didn't have to be working on choreography. We didn't have to focus on if this person doesn't want to partner with this person,
Yeah.
right?
I was never a fan of this franchise, but tell me the advantage and disadvantage of that, since now you have the
Yeah.
experience.
Well, the advantage is that the choreography, you don't have to
Of
do
course.
your choreography, which
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
take a lot of time and energy. Um, so, but but then the disadvantage there is that if there's something in the choreography you don't like,
Ah,
you don't have much
well,
room
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um, but that is an advantage if you're not good at choreography, or you don't have the time,
Hmm.
or it's easier, or if you're newer. Um, in the beginning with the touch teams, we really loved that there were so many teams around the world.
Sure.
So there was a lot of networking, and for our students, for our team members, it was great because they could, if they were traveling for work or vacation, whether it's somewhere in the US or somewhere around the world, they could plug into the worldwide Facebook
Well,
group and say, hey,
that's
I'm
one
going
of
to
the
be in town.
pluses. Yes. Yeah.
And they would go to a rehearsal. They would sometimes perform with them, with
Mm,
other
mm,
teams. So
yeah.
that part we loved, and our team members loved. That was really, really special.
Right.
Um, After a while with the touch teams, because as they grew, they added so many different levels and varieties. So then there was a little less option for people traveling, because some people would say, okay, no, I want this style, or I want this. And so it wasn't so many teams doing the same routine as there was
Right.
the first few years. So it kind of lost a little bit of that, which for us also, it kind of lost a little bit of a selling point to the
Of course.
students,
Of
because
course.
that was one of the aspects we really liked, and it was kind
Right.
of going away.
Well, you always have this selling point, Ava. You are a champion. You are a legend in the Bay Area. But of course, a lot of youngsters don't know that anymore. But it's just a matter of promoting
Right,
and keeping your name relevant there in the
right,
industry, which some people do now. They have to, even this pandemic. Even if you can do it online, they have to be relevant and all of that stuff, which
right,
I understand.
right.
Um, Now, running a team is a little bit different than running a studio. Now that's a different beast altogether,
Yes.
because now you have to maintain this cash flow to pay rent, to pay your teachers, what have you.
Hmm.
How do you maintain that? Now, did you ever come to a point where you say, hell, next month I don't have to rent? What the hell am I going to do?
So I'll be honest, I'm not the best business person.
You are, you've been maintaining this thing. I can't believe it.
But I'm completely self-taught. I don't, um, and I will say that uh, about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
we were kind of at our last straw with the studio.
Yeah.
We were tired of struggling at that place. We were tired of This was about the time that we switched with the teams and switched to classes. It was all kind
Yeah.
of happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and we were up at the Reno Festival, and I got to admit, Rodolfo and I, it was not a good weekend, festival weekend for us. We weren't in
Yeah.
good moods.
Oh.
We were, kind of unhappy and angry at each other when it wasn't,
Yeah.
And luckily we took a workshop from Letitia Hardy.
Who is she?
She, to be honest, I don't know which state she's in. She's in a different state.
Mm-hmm.
She's a teacher, performer, studio owner, and she went to school for business.
Uh-huh.
So she taught this really good workshop on running a studio.
Mm.
And it was it was like the right workshop at the time that we needed it. And that was, I think, on Sunday morning, and still Sunday was kind of a crappy day, and driving home, we were still kind of angry and everything. But the advice she gave kind of kicked things into gear. I implemented a lot of what I learned in her workshop, and we decided, look, we've got to make a change. We got to push forward. If we're going to make this work, we got to make a change. And it worked. So, we just, like I said, I didn't go to business school like she did. I don't have that experience. I'm a dance teacher. I grew up fantasizing about having my own nightclub, my own dance studio, what I would name it, how I would do it. I would do this instead of this. And, but you don't realize all the other stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
And so,
Well,
it's been changing.
When you were a kid, have you always dreamed that you were going to be a dancer?
So I took dance classes when I from between age of 6 to 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I wouldn't say that, I mean, I really liked it, but I wouldn't say that then I was thinking of, oh, this is what I want to do as a career.
Right.
I don't really remember what I was thinking of that I wanted to do back then. Then my family and I moved out of the city for about 5 or 6 years. We moved up to Northern California, lived in the country. And when I came back at 16, a very good friend of mine, Antonio, who was a professional flamenco dancer, he had started taking ballet and tap classes at a very well-respected ballet school that no longer exists in San Francisco. It was run by Madame Lenova, and out at, I think it was 20th and Irving. And he said, come on, let's go. And we started going. I started going with him. He'd come to my house and we'd take the bus over. Mondays, it was a 1-hour tap class and a 1.5-hour beginning ballet class. And I took those classes even when I was sick. The tap class, I had a crush on the teacher. The ballet class was taught by this gorgeous, petite, perfect Filipino woman that you just, her feet were amazing and her point, and she was always dressed perfect and she was beautiful and always made up. So it just, those were my inspiration in those two classes. And from there, so I was going for a while every Monday, and then from there it grew, and I started, leveling up and adding more classes and going on different nights, and it just went from there. And then what was the actual question?
What was then the transition from there to really getting into it? You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay.
There's something in there that you'd like to do,
Got it. So that was when I was 16. So I'd say around 17, there was a few things. So by then, I was taking other classes at other studios as well. Mostly ballet, tap, and jazz.
Mm.
And I do remember at one point, I guess I was around 17, telling one of my teachers, Elvia Marta, very
Mhm.
famous jazz modern teacher. I remember telling her that I want to do this professionally. So there was that moment. But that was still in, jazz, what was contemporary dance at the time,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And I did, around that period, I was starting to go to some auditions. Um, but I pretty quickly, so without saying my age, you don't get to ask, this was before J Lo, Nicki Minaj,
Hmm.
right? In
Right,
other words, before the curvy big booties,
right, right.
right? And the shorter girls,
Yeah.
right? I'm 5'1",
The
and
Paula Abdul's type of thing. Yeah.
right before Paula Abdul.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm 5'1", I'm curvy,
Mhm.
I was smaller then, but still, I
Right,
had booty already.
right.
Okay. So when I was going to auditions, I quickly saw I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't blonde back then, right? And I wasn't skinny enough.
Yeah.
I could see who they were picking, who was, and so that was kind of I was seeing that. And then the other very important shift was I happened to pass by a ballroom dance studio. And I have the singer, given a little piece of history, and if people go do some searching, they'll figure out what year it was. Do you know the singer Sylvester, the disco singer? Do
No,
you remember him? Okay.
no.
So he was pretty big.
Uh-huh.
His backup singers were the Two Tons of Fun, Raining Men. It's Raining Men. You'll know the song if you hear it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
remember that. I remember that song, Raining Man. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's
So,
Sylvester. Okay.
so Sylvester was playing, was big, but not big, not global big yet.
Right.
He was playing at the Castro Street Fair. My parents and me and my sister and some other kids that were babysitting for the day. Back then, Castro Street Fair, it was like 3 blocks. There was lots of craft booths, very family friendly.
Yeah, those were the days.
So we went there. We took the bus or something, I can't remember. We were starting, the concert was happening. Sylvester was on stage. We start to walk through the crowd because the first block from Market to 18th
Mm.
was the stage, and the crafts were behind that. So we start to walk through. We figure, okay, go through the crowd. It was so packed, and we all of a sudden started to feel like we couldn't get through that crowd, and we had these little kids with us. So we're like, no, we had to exit to walk around. We passed that little street, which is, I guess, kind of 19th and Market and Castro. There's a little ballroom dance studio storefront there. I look in, there's a disco or hustle, I didn't know back then,
Right,
class
right,
happening.
right.
And it was being taught by someone I knew from Madame Lenova's studio.
Studio. Uh-huh.
Someone who I only knew kind of in passing because he was in intermediate and I was still in beginning.
Mm.
Okay. So I stopped in to say hi. He said, my class is blah, blah, blah. Come to class sometime. From that class, from going to that for a little while, I ended up meeting the owner of the studio,
Mm.
Bob Dean. So Bob Dean was a ballroom teacher, and he was very influential in my dance career and my teaching.
Mm-hmm.
He was also influential and the first teacher for many other teachers, for Diane Jarmelo, um, for some other teachers here in the Bay Area. I'm not sure if Arthur Calandrelli started with him.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, there was quite a few that came from there. Marge Gabbert, I believe,
Oh,
was there.
Marge, I remember because I took lessons from her too.
Yeah. So within a couple months, I was in Bob's teacher training class. So here I was, like not even 18 or just turning 18. I was learning ballroom, which was smooth and Latin, American style. And I was learning it from the leaders and the followers' perspective and from the teacher's perspective.
Mm.
Right? So that was my first intro to ballroom, was learning both roles
Yeah.
and learning how to teach it from
Mm.
someone who'd been teaching for many, many years. So that is how I started to switch into partner dance, because I quickly realized with partner dance, as long as you have a partner that is a good height or fit with you, it doesn't matter that you're short, right? Because I wasn't getting going to the auditions. Like I said, I
Right,
wasn't
right.
tall enough,
Yeah.
right? Um, so yeah, so that's why I switched to partner dancing.
Right. Now, when it comes to salsa, however, though, how did you get attracted to the Latin dance? I know that there's Latin dance version in the ballroom, but it's totally
Right,
different when you actually do the salsa the way we do it, you know. So how did
right.
you get attracted to that?
So I was always attracted more to rhythm dances,
Got it.
tap, swing, Latin.
Mm,
Yeah. Even though I do ballet, even though I've done the smooth dances, I've still always been more attracted to the rhythm dances.
yeah.
So in this teacher training class, I met two women that were very influential in my salsa beginnings. One was the former wife of musician Benny Velarde,
Oh,
Joanne Velarde.
okay.
So she was teaching a Latin jazz class, and I believe she was also in Bob's uh, teacher training class. I can't quite remember. But also in the teacher training class, I met Ceci Chevere. So she was Puerto Rican, older than me, very natural style of dancing, right? I
Mhm.
don't know if you remember her or ever saw her actually social dancing.
I
It
probably
was,
have. I just don't, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a bit out there. She had her own style. It was a little bit wild and crazy, but it was also, you know, very, very natural. I want to say traditional, but it was totally her own. You know what I mean? But
Uniqueness,
it was like
uniqueness.
early old
Yeah. Yeah.
school, raw, natural salsa.
Right. Right.
So I was hanging out with these two women, influenced by them as far as dancing, going out to clubs,
Of course.
hearing the music,
Yeah.
had a fake ID, but was going out to the salsa clubs at an
Yeah.
early age. And these were some of my influences. So it wasn't just ballroom that I was learning. So early on, I was learning more authentic.
Yeah, this is true that mambo and hustle in the old days really, let's just say that hustle really influenced mambo. Is that correct?
So hustle grew out of mambo.
Oh, okay.
Hustle influenced salsa.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. Okay.
Because the kids that were learning, that were creating,
Mm,
the kids that were creating hustle in the 70s,
right.
their parents were mambo dancers, right? From the
That's three.
50s to
Okay.
the
I got it. Okay.
New
Okay.
York, Bronx, Queens.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
their parents were mambo dancers. The kids were turning it into hustle,
Mm,
right? I always like to say this, because I truly believe it, and it's what I've learned from other people, but some people think that hustle came from swing. No,
oh,
I totally do not agree with that. It came
interesting.
from
Okay.
mambo.
Right. Right. That's
Now,
what I heard. Yeah.
you get influences from different places. Is there some, where the influence and hustle could be from swing, would be more from early swing with
Oh,
the
are we talking
lifts
about
and
West
stuff
Coast
like
swing or
that.
are we talking about the
Well,
other swing?
yeah, here's the thing. I
Okay.
think that in the West Coast swing world, a lot of people think that there's a connection there, but
Mm,
there isn't. If anything, it was only from early, like Lindy and really
right.
early swing with lifts and stuff like that.
Right.
But really, hustle is a Latin dance. It came from mambo. and
It
from
makes
those
sense.
kids that grew up with Mambo.
It makes sense because there's some movements there, or even the acrobatic movements also, that you guys do in salsa now. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's a muscle right there,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my former partner and I, Louie, we were really in the early days of the congresses, we were one of the first couples
Mm.
doing more than just neck drops.
Right, right. Ava's favorite. No, I'm just kidding. You gotta understand. I came from Alex De Silva's Wednesday class, where he
Yeah,
always taught that. And
yeah,
every time I go to a congress, especially in LA, my God, every 30 seconds it's done.
yeah.
Um, now the acrobatic stuff. Okay. Now, when did you get into that? And when you first got into it, weren't you scared?
So I started doing lifts and partner acrobatics in, I want to say, I mean, of course, I did a few little simple stuff before, but really with my partner, Andre Washington. And that was in the early 1980s.
Uh
Um, and no, I mean, I was younger, so I wasn't scared.
huh. I guess it's pretty interesting because I see that in most of the champions you develop, well, Junior and Emily really didn't do a lot of lifts, but you got Ciro there and his wife, and then you got Gil and Naomi,
Hmm.
and then you got the other dancers. I think the Asian couple, I forgot their name. You got Shala also there doing some acrobatics and all of that stuff. And you were the only one doing that in the Bay Area.
Yeah, we were the one who started
Oh,
doing.
okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, people at first in salsa were doing neck drops, maybe a few cart assisted cartwheels, a lot of dips and kind of. Here's the thing, in LA salsa primarily, they
Yeah.
were redoing tricks, but they were doing ones that they'd learned from swing, from
Yeah, of
Lindy
course.
and
Yeah,
from
yeah.
swing. We brought in the hustle tricks,
I see. I see.
and that's what changed things because, these weren't like new tricks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we brought in overheads and stuff going around the leader's neck and flips, and all that was from hustle and from further back as well, but we brought that into the salsa community.
Now,
um,
now in
in
your
fact, many of the Colombian, that, how big it is in Colombia now. Okay, in the Colombian salsa teams, okay,
yeah.
many of those younger teams probably do not know who I am, but the teachers that started it there, that started doing the tricks, many of them learned from me and Louie,
Oh my God. Yeah.
and then from DVDs from Dave and I. Yeah.
I mean, they were kicking ass there for a
Yeah.
while, the
No,
Colombians.
I know. But I know because they met us at those Puerto Rico congresses. And for years, excuse me, where's that coming
Okay.
from? I thought I turned everything off. And they would tell me that they learned and started from me. Um,
That is so good. Those are the things that I love to hear, and I love to even publish because, look, without you guys being pioneers, I mean, this youngster doesn't even know where those movement came from, you know, and it's very important to see those history and all of that stuff.
mhm, mhm.
And the things that you contributed to the Bay Area, not to mention in the competition arena, because yeah, you were doing cabaret there already. Of course, Billy Fajardo was also doing cabaret there also, and then the next generation followed. Alex Lee, and then you partner up with Dave Paris also, who's another one uh, that can lift you and toss you like a pancake. Crying out loud, how is Dave, by the way? Because he had Corona.
He almost left us a few
Oh my
times.
God, I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on a ventilator for months.
Wow.
Yeah, he is getting better every day.
Good.
He made it through. It did take quite a toll. You know, he's not 100% yet,
Uh-huh.
for sure. But he's getting better, and he's working on it.
Okay, good. Good.
And a lot of people, you know, meditating and praying, and while he was in the hospital, and then a lot of people helping him when he first got out, and
Yeah.
continuing to help and support. Yeah, but
Because I heard that on Facebook, and I think it was
yeah,
posted by you. It was like, oh my Lord. And at that time, I had some friends of mine that were affected. We had some friends in the industry that are affected, but they just didn't announce it. They didn't want to announce it. So it was just
sorry, you froze for a second.
FB messages and all of that stuff. Although some announced it also, but man, there were some people that died also that I know of, and it's very sad. And
Yeah.
it's easing down a little bit, and hopefully we can develop a vaccine and all of that stuff. But let's
Yeah.
get into the partnering, because you had several partners, and all of them were successful. Really, all of them were successful. And
Hmm.
so, uh, not amongst, with all of those partners, what have you learned, both negative and positive, and that you apply now in your life? Because right now you're still partner up with Rodolfo, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah. So what is the question about
So
that?
let's
That's
let's say most of the partner, one of the most memorable partner you have is Louis, because you guys competed left and right. You competed left and right. What was that like when it comes to competition? Does it take a certain city to to be nervous about your competitors or the judges per se? Because you compete on the East Coast and West Coast. You know,
hmm
what's the difference? What's the vibe like?
uh, well, I've had many partners, like you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Uh huh.
Um, and I mean, starting with, I had my very first partner for hustle was a young man named Russell, who I lost touch of a long, long time ago. I
Yeah.
think he moved up to Seattle, and we did one or two contests, local stuff.
Mm.
But that was really early days. I mean, that was still fake ID days. I was like 18 or 19. Um, and then my next partner was Robert Valdez,
Mm.
who he's here in the Bay Area. He's a professional musician, and we're still friends. We weren't in touch for many years, but we're back in touch again. And he and I, we we did some local competitions as well. It was difficult partnership. We were both very uh, stubborn headed,
So you were both alpha.
I guess,
Yeah,
yes, that's
yeah,
what it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Um, so we didn't last super long as far as partnership.
Mm.
Then I had a few other partners doing different stuff. Another one, interesting, Harry Mason, who was a well-known jewelry designer,
Well,
but
that's
also a
interesting.
dancer.
Yeah.
And also came out of these were all several of these were in the Bob Dean days.
Right.
Robert Valdez and I practiced at Bob's studio. Harry Mason and I taught together at Bob's studio. We taught new wave dance.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember that
And,
term.
and that was one of our first choreographies and teams was a new wave dance team.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, I have forgotten that music, that new wave.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But then I'd say had a few important partners, and one of them was Andre Washington,
Yeah.
partner that I had pretty much through all of the 80s.
Mm.
And there is one video of us on YouTube, and more to come. I have more that I recently had transferred from VHS tape to
Yeah.
DVD. Now I got to get
Yeah.
someone to upload them
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But he was like, we were like brother and sister. We were, even when we had our, moments, we still were, kind of together.
Right, right.
After that, I competed for a short time with Arthur Calandrelli. We competed in the American Rhythm
I
Ballroom.
remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we were doing good. We were partnered for about 2 years. I don't think he was as much into competing and that kind of the pressure of that.
Yeah.
I would have kept going with it. He decided not to. He loves to perform. He
Certainly
performs, he
did. Yeah,
teaches, he also sings
yeah.
professionally now. We're still very good friends. We hang out together. And then there was several years where I had no partner. And then I met Louis Rosa, and we partnered for several years.
He didn't live in the Bay Area. He used to live in New York, correct?
Correct.
Mm.
Yes. So it was back and forth for a
Right.
few years. Yeah. I was for about, there was a point there where I was going to New York maybe 6 or 7 times a year.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And he was coming out here as well.
Mm.
But that was like in the late 90s, and you could fly to New York for like $150 each way.
Yeah,
You
those
know?
were the days.
Yeah. So that was a pretty important partnership.
That
Uh,
was very significant for your dance career, really, because that's how
yeah.
you were known as one of the legend in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, at that time in your reign, you had Michelle Ricardo, you had Gary and Isabel, which they weren't really competing. And then later on,
Originally they were.
oh really? I didn't know. Then later on, John and Liz, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Gabriel Romero was there, but I don't know if he was competing at that time already. So.
How long's the interview?
Oh, we got time, my dear. We got time. I mean, the thing about podcasts is that we're doing chisme and all of that stuff, and we're just hanging out, and you don't know it's been an hour already.
Okay. So since you brought it up,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one story about that involves competition,
Uh-huh.
involves Gary and Isabel,
Uh-huh.
involves Gabriel, and
Uh-huh.
involves John and Liz.
Okay.
Okay. Do you remember the Sound Factory?
Yes.
Okay. So this must have been, let's see. I met Louis 96. So this was about 97 or 98.
Mm.
Probably 98. They had a competition. Now I had 97 or 98. I'm not quite sure exactly. So up until then, so in the early to mid 90s,
Mm.
I was teaching salsa. I was not doing much in the way of teams, just little few performances here and there.
Yeah.
Early to mid 90s. I wasn't really performing much, and the salsa scene was starting to grow, but I wasn't really going out to the clubs that much.
Right.
My classes were successful, but Gary and Isabel were the big name in town.
Mm.
Right? They had the big club classes. They had hundreds of people. Everyone knew them.
Right.
Everyone knew me by name, right? Everyone, oh yeah, I've heard of her. But
Right.
I wasn't performing or competing, and I wasn't active out in the clubs. Okay. So then I met Louis,
Mm.
started to bring him back and forth here. We started to compete and stuff. People were starting to hear and see me again, and okay. But we hadn't done much in the Bay Area yet together. Sound Factory has a competition.
Mm. I remember that. They had some competition. I think it was a yearly thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So small stage, up high, little triangular spot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we came in, we had 2 routines because we know there were several rounds. We had changes of costume. We were one of the first to be doing the tearaway costumes, right? So we come in, a very young newbie, John and Liz were in it.
Yes.
Gabriel and Alicia were in it.
Right.
Some other people I can't remember. And Gary and Isabel,
Gary and Isabel, yeah.
were the champions of the Bay Area at the time. You know, they assumed they were going to take it like that. Right. Everyone else assumed they were going to take it like that, but all the newbies were trying for second and third place, right?
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think Gary and Isabel had done much preparation. They weren't wearing much in the wear of costumes. They were wearing their coordinated outfits they used to wear.
Bad mistake. Okay.
But they weren't really wearing costumes. Yeah. And they had a few tricks that they knew, and you know, it was kind of like Alex de Silva in the fact that they kind of had the same routine, that they just they flowed and did so easy together, right?
Correct.
That I don't think they'd prepared much for it. I'm saying, I don't know for sure. That's what I think. We came in, we did the first round, blew the place away. We quickly went to go change. They're calling names for the second round. Luis and Evelyn were like running out, you know, zipping up our costume. Blew them away with the set doing something totally different.
Right.
Comes time to announce. They're announcing third, fourth, etc. I think John and Liz were probably fifth or fourth. Gabriel and Alicia were third. Everybody is you know, Gary and Isabel already kind of, I think, a little freaked out.
Right.
They start to announce second place. And they announced Gary and Isabel.
Oh, what an upset.
And they walked up. I mean, I remember it so clear because it was such a big moment. They walked up on the stage kind of like,
what the hell is happening? What the hell happened?
Yeah. And immediately, and there was a lot of my students in the crowd, people that had never seen me perform but had been taking my classes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everyone was like, Ava, Ava. And the whole crowd was going crazy while Gary and Isabel were still trying to take their bow for second.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah.
And then they announced us.
Nice. But I don't know if you noticed this, Ava.
There's a sad thing. I just want to add this.
What's the sad thing?
If Gary or Isabel sees this, we were looking forward to competing against them again.
Oh, okay.
Because we wanted to see if they were going to like get back into the studio and do some work and beat us, right? We wanted that challenge. They never competed again.
No. Isabel is not that type of person. She is not a competitive person.
So I kind of felt bad about that.
Yeah.
I wanted them to, I didn't want them to stop. I wanted them to keep going. And I wanted to like have that challenge.
Yeah, I know that for a fact because at one point there, she wanted to get back into the competition arena looking for partners. And every time she's almost there, she backs out. You know, there's that, the fear of failure is right there. And she's perfectionist. She's that type of person. I don't know if you notice this, with all of your routines with Louis compared to the other routines in the Bay Area, okay? There's such thing as a routine where, oh yeah, trick, moves, blah, 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 blah. But you and Louis, from the get-go, when you start, there is that intensity. Does that make sense? There's that intensity. Well, when you have that intensity, whether it's in your move, in your facial expression, attitude, and all of that stuff, of course the audience will look at you like this, you know? Yeah. And that's like, oh, you know? And so when you say that you won that contest at an upset, I don't think the crowd has ever seen anything like that before, the intensity.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. No, it's true. He was a very intense person.
Indeed, yes.
and our routines that's what made them stand out, made them different. Oh, yeah. We were very hard hitting, very intense from start to finish.
I mean, and you can see that in one of his students, which is Alex Lee, because it's almost like, Alex, you don't have to punch the bag. Just put your aggression there in the choreography, and you can tell it. So when you see the intensity there, he ripped up his shirt with San Francisco 49ers. It's all over.
Yeah,
it didn't matter, right? That's another student of yours that that has this competitive mental attitude that even to this day, if he's not old or he's not injured, he still want to compete.
Exactly. Yeah.
with all the years that you have in our dance industry, if you could find two words to whoever wants to start the business in this industry, whether they're teaching, whether they're promoting, uh, or owning a studio, what are the two words that would best describe to help them go through it?
Two words.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, love. You have to love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And drive.
See, that's the thing.
You have to have
Define
that
that.
drive.
How do you have that drive though? Because it's one thing for us to, oh, I really love doing this, but if you don't have the drive, how do you generate the drive though?
It's an attitude, a way of thinking. To be honest, my parents, a big influence. I grew up with parents that were always in business for themselves,
Yeah.
not always successful.
But it's always,
There's ups and downs.
there's always that idea. There's an entrepreneurship,
Right.
Yeah.
But they were entrepreneurs. They were always in business for themselves.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not grow up knowing my parents going to work for someone else for a paycheck.
Right.
I didn't experience that.
Look, one of the reasons.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the reason I asked you this is because one day, I think I saw you in a shop somewhere in the Haight Ashbury area. I love that place, by the way, when it comes to San Francisco. If you guys have not visited that and you're a tourist in San Francisco, you must go. Those little boutiques there are just great. And then I saw Ava in a boutique shop, and that happened to be owned by her dad. It's like, Ava, what are you doing here? It's like, this is my dad's shop, and I've always put two and two together. So no wonder Ava has that business sense, because that's how she grew up,
Yeah.
And so I've always tied that in. You are Jewish. Your background is Jewish, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So what is it about Israel that's beautiful that I have not gone to Israel? I wish I could go one of these days. I'd like to go. I noticed you go there every year. Yeah.
I have the past. So I started going 6 years ago. I hadn't been all my life, but I do have family there, and so I'm sadly not going this year.
Have you ever visited their Congress there?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've gone the past 5 years in December, every December.
Oh, I see.
I've gone 5 times, 5 years in a row.
Yeah,
So
because I've asked Ismael this one time, Ismael Otero. I was like, what's your favorite Congress? It's like, you got to go to Israel. That's one of the best salsa Congress I've ever been. I was like, well, okay.
So that's at a different time of the year, though. And for me, the past few years, I've gone in December because it's the easiest time for me to get away. And I went for 3 to 4 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic, I'm not going this year. Hopefully next year I will be able to go. But just in those 5 years, I have seen the salsa world grow there, salsa and bachata. And I've taught there. I'm good friends with a young couple who own a very successful salsa school in Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
There's more in Tel Aviv and Haifa and different places, but they started their school in Jerusalem. And I have seen it grow and build, and them grow and build over the past 5 years. They train primarily with Fernando Sosa.
Oh, is that right?
Tropical Gem. And they've had out there to train, and it's not so far for them, right? From Israel, they go to see in Spain or Italy. I forget which one. Right. So they've really grown in their dancing. But I teach when I go there. I teach some guest classes. And I hope that one day you will get to go to Israel, and
I really want to go. I really want to go.
I
So
will give you some advice, and
yeah,
I'll tell you where to go. And if you go
yeah.
in December, I'll be your tour guide for a couple days.
Well, there are promoters there that want to bring me and do some workshop. I was like, are you kidding? I'll go,
Yeah,
So we'll see after this pandemic.
it's
And not to
wonderful.
mention, after this pandemic, things will change a little bit, Ava. I think that
Yeah, hope
I'm
so.
going to go back to the corporate world.
Mm,
Probably is the right decision for me, and probably reduce
okay.
a little bit of Congresses. San Francisco will always be there. Isidra has got that thing tacked
Yeah.
on, and I'll probably have to give up 2 Congresses.
Mm,
Um, because I think that if I, not to mention, I have to think of Social Security, I have to think of retirement and all of that stuff, the things that we don't think when we're dancers, because I got out of the corporate world 2006. That was such a long time ago. And trust me, even Evan can tell you, it's hard to get back.
yeah.
It's very hard to get back, but it is the way it is. How do you maintain your sanity because of this pandemic? I know you do your Zoom from time to time when you do your classes, right? How do you maintain your sanity? I mean, what do you do during the day now?
So I got to admit, the first few weeks and even the first few months, definitely a lot of ups and downs,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely some depression days, some emotional days where all of a sudden just the whole day, I'm on the verge of tears and stuff.
yeah,
Luckily, that is kind of gone away and hasn't been happening. But there were a few days like that. I'm
yeah,
sure for everybody.
yeah.
Um, what am I doing now? I am several things. I'm teaching online classes.
Good.
Um, I am doing some training of my own,
Oh,
taking
that's good.
classes in a variety of genres, but I'm doing that fairly consistently. Trying to learn some new things and just stay fit, stay in
Yeah,
shape. I'm of course helping my father, um, spending time with him, and also finally getting to work on some projects at the family home that
oh, that's
had
good.
not been worked on forever. So
Yeah,
finally making some days to do that. So I am making use of the time to do a few things that I don't normally have time to do.
yeah, yeah. Are
Um,
you are you a strict teacher?
strict.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? I don't know.
I mean, look, if you can produce people
You've
like
seen
that,
me teach.
yeah, I've seen you teach. Very strict, not very strict per se. Um, uh,
I can
you
be.
mean business? You mean business? You
Yeah.
don't waste around.
No
If you're
nonsense.
gonna have to do this Suzy Q, do it for an hour, nonstop, and all of that stuff. And I remember that because I was in your studio about to leave after teaching bachata in the other room, right? And all of your students were like doing da 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 da. I looked at it again. Oh, still they're still doing the same thing. I looked at it again. They're still doing the same thing. As a, what makes it good, because when I look at your students, especially the female that follows, the lines, the precision of the technique is very good, and I think it has something to do with the work ethic and the teaching style that you have.
Thank you.
So I'm going to mention a couple of your students, and you describe them in one word only. Okay, one word only.
Okay.
Would it help if there are a couple? Would it help if I mention both of them or just their individual name?
One word, that's so hard,
It,
Rodney.
it, it's not going to be hard, trust me. Okay, let's just get to the elephant, the obvious one, Junior and Emily.
One word.
I
Uh,
remember these kids that you were very proud of, even
yeah.
though they weren't dancing on time. They just didn't, they were just doing this. You were promoting them already early on, whether it was in Metronome to perform or Hot Salsa Friday.
Yeah. So I'm going to say dedication.
Dedication. Those two kids, I think I interviewed them long, long time ago when I was still in Salsa Gang, right?
Hmm.
And I told them, who taught you? And I said, Ava. I was like, Ava and only Ava. That's what Junior said, which is good. You got to love this type of students when they give
Yeah.
you credit, right?
Yeah.
Ciro Martinez, and I forgot his wife's name. It's Filipina.
Marianne.
Marianne. At one point, they were really good there, and then they gave up.
Yeah.
But they were really good.
Yeah. I think they have 3 kids.
Nice.
So, one word.
Come on, Ava.
I don't know. I'm not good at this.
It's a description of them. Come on.
One word. Well, it doesn't really have to, it's not so much about their dancing, but
Yeah.
um, in the way that they work together as a partnership. And I'm going to say smart.
Smart, huh? Yeah. What
Because
about?
she once told me that
Yeah,
because they were, also a couple,
of course.
she said they were very good about if they were starting to argue or something like that, they would just say, okay, stop, walk away, come back another day. Because it wasn't,
See,
and they were,
that's the thing I
all
need to
couples
ask
can
you.
do that.
I need to ask you this because you're experiencing this, and I've seen a lot of students you train.
Hmm.
When it comes to competition or when it comes to teaching together, should a couple teach together? A lover, that is, a couple, whether they're married or girlfriend or boyfriend,
It doesn't, everyone's different. I
everyone's
can't
different.
say
Yeah.
one way or the other
Uh,
because there's successful teaching and performing couples that are a couple, and there's
yeah,
successful ones that are like brother and sister and not a couple. So
that's
it
true.
just
You're right.
depends on the couple.
You're
Yeah,
right.
and I've experienced both.
Okay.
So and it for good and for bad.
Uh-huh,
So
yeah.
I wouldn't say one way or the other.
I can't teach with Isidra. I can't. She dominates the whole thing. It's like, oh hell no. you know, the person I've ever had good chemistry teaching with was Camille,
Mm,
Tango Legs.
yeah.
Really, if she needed to say something, she does it in a precise timing that she doesn't interrupt me. Which was really good. So we worked well together for 3 years. What
Yeah.
about Alex Lee and Chi?
One word.
No, it
Energy.
doesn't have to be one word. Doesn't have to be one
Oh.
word. Because you're having a hard time. Just describe
Well,
it.
one word would be energy,
Oh,
right?
for sure. It's kind of interesting though, because when you look at Chi, you wouldn't think that she has the energy, but once she goes off, Jesus.
Right.
Oh
Right.
my God. Shala?
Shala.
Shala.
Yeah, unfortunately, she's not dancing. She's got kids
She's
as
got
well,
kids, yeah.
not dancing anymore. She was always a lovely dancer. Yeah.
It
We're
was,
still in touch, but
yeah. I hope you and Rodolfo make more routines with your team, because one thing I like, most of your routines have a story. Um,
mhm,
and when it comes to promoters like me, and when I see that there's a value in that when it comes to performing, because
mhm,
off and on, when in our industry, when we go to the stage, and you almost see that every dance team just doing the same thing, but when you have something different, when you tell a story, like with you
right,
and Rodolfo having coffee, and all of a sudden there's this another girl.
right.
That was a good story right there.
Yeah,
So I hope you guys do that again. Of course, I'd like to commend you. You had a lot of good reviews in your last workshop. I think that was 20, would we say 2018, 2019 in SFIBF? Because this time, you've always done a workshop like this, but this time you did it in a different
class.
way.
Yeah, I
You
think
made it more of like a
2019.
concept, Uh,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, and so we had good reviews with that. And so,
Oh,
I'm hoping that you do that again
yeah.
uh, when we do this again.
Yeah.
Most likely it'll be in downtown San Francisco this time, because
Awesome.
it's a little hard to do it in like Marriott in San Francisco. They don't want to do it
Yeah.
past 2
Mm,
anymore. It's like, okay, that's
right.
great, But I thank you for this time, Ava. I think that would help a lot of students, and
Thank
even
you,
the
Rodney.
entrepreneurs in our dance industry who wants to do this. There are up and down, indeed, but there's, like you said, you got to love what you're doing, and you got to have that drive, because they go hand in hand. Uh, And are you a risk taker? I don't see that. Because I remember when you brought Frankie Martinez here, and you already know there's that package with Aisha and DJ Henry and all of that stuff. But I've never seen you nervous because we were helping you promote that, selling tickets and all that. But I've never seen you nervous or pressured or whatnot. And even with Nelson Flores, we invited him here too, doing some boot camps. You know, maybe you're good in hiding it, but were you nervous?
Oh, you mean as far as whether or not something's going to
whether or not
yeah.
whether or not you're gonna make the budget or not? Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know, maybe not particularly with those, but yeah, sometimes you wonder, you know,
Yeah.
until the day, like, okay, are people going to sign up? You know,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Procrastinate. I would say, so in addition to having drive, loving what you do, right?
Yeah, of course.
Having drive, one thing that has really helped me, and really that I think if you can't do this, it's very hard to be successful, is that you have to be comfortable promoting yourself
That's true.
and selling yourself.
Yeah.
I have known many wonderful dancers. We discussed before we went live today, we discussed one. And I've had other teachers who were fabulous dancers and or teachers, but were terrible at promoting themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
especially now that we got all of this social media, and you know, it's a generational thing, and if you don't keep up with the technology, then there it is, you know.
That too. Just that being able to sell yourself. Some people are not comfortable with it, and I understand that, but you kind of need that.
Yeah.
To be able
Another dancer I forgot to mention, Philip Heyman, and we were talking about that earlier before recording. What's your description of him?
Oh, can I use more than one word?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I love Philip, and I miss him. Yeah, we are in touch. He's still living in New York. We exchange an email a few times a year. I know that he does a little bit of dancing on his own, and sometimes, but I wish he had been able to do more with his dancing, because he was.
I wish it too. I wish it too. I'd love to promote him. I'd love to feature him at my festival. You know.
Yeah. But I believe he's settled and he's happy. He's been in a relationship.
Good.
For at least the past 10, 15 years.
Oh, it's a long time.
And I met her. She's not a dancer, but she's a great person. They've been together, I want to say more like, at least, I'd have to figure it out, but at least 10 years, maybe closer to 15. And we're still in touch. And I wish he had been able to make more.
I think we all do. I think we're wishing that, actually, because he has some fans over here, you know.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing. Dedicated. That's also dedication in how he used to train, because he would sometimes, if he wanted to learn something, he would like lock himself in his room for days.
Is that right?
And practice like one thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he very dedicated, but perfectionist.
Perfectionist. That's the word. So Ava, where can they find you besides social media? And they want a private lessons? Any website or address, or I mean?
Yeah. So our studio website is symbolicdance.com. On Facebook and Instagram, it's our full name, Symbolic Dance and Fitness, and of course Ava Apple. AVA, APPLE.
That last name. Did you guys invent that last name? That's really your last name.
It is my last name now. It's not my first name.
You know, it's
not my first name.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But I chose it when I was a teenager, when I was
Oh,
living in
got it.
the country.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Well, Ava, it's we went over an hour. Isn't that great? See, that's what podcast is all about. It shouldn't feel like we're just hanging out and gossiping and all of that stuff. But
I know we could talk for
oh
longer.
yeah,
We can
yeah.
do part two later.
So many stories. But one of these days, I'll bring you as a panel when there's like dance issues in the industry and all of that stuff. But I really
Yeah.
thank you for your time because there were some valuable things that we talked about here. And I wish you luck in this pandemic. And when this pandemic is over, I'll see you at SFIBF.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Rodney.
All right, my dear.
All
Talk to you
right.
later.
Bye.